Okay, so let's talk about the Gospels. I made a promise that I felt like we were getting a little too negative on number 8. We're always complained about something, all justified, all brilliant takes. But I thought it would be interesting to go and do a deep dive into the Bible and hopefully have a good conversation. Hopefully, I learn more than I'm even saying from all of you. So I'm really looking forward to the comments. So, to just dive in here, we have different versions of essentially the same story when it comes to our Gospels. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And we're asked if if this is the Word of God, then why are there differences in these things? And if you could imagine being a detective, right, and you go and you talk to four different people, and every single one of them at 4 p.m., I saw this guy leave the house. At 4:15, he came back in, and every one of them was actually completely identical. A full description of everybody's outfit, everything. A detective would look at this and immediately think there was some kind of conspiracy. So the differences that we see in the Gospels are actually partially what provides a great deal of credibility. And they are all coming from different perspectives. So Matthew knew Jesus at the time that Jesus was ministering. Luke was a companion of Paul, who got most of his information from a post-resurrection Jesus. Mark was a companion of Peter, and so on. So when you're looking at this initial story, you'll notice that Matthew outlines a lot more about Joseph's experience, what Joseph is thinking, what the angels said to Joseph. And when you look at Luke, it's tremendously more reliant on the narrative of Mary, what she experiences, what she's thinking, what the angel said to her. And we'll get more and more into that, but this is first video is just kind of to establish a ground floor and really just look at the first couple of lines of Matthew and give a little bit more of a perspective about that. So in so many Bible chapters, especially growing up, I would look at these and be so bored about the genealogy. He begot him and begot him, and they're all weird names of Boaz and Mayab, and I usually would skip over them, but it's actually tremendously important in this case. And something that we have to consider here is a specific genealogy is discussed for Jesus. And as if we're aiming to prove the validity of these things, this is the first claim that you ever hear about Jesus in your New Testament is his genealogy. And you're probably looking at it from our perspective now. This was so many years ago. Who knows if this is true or not? But Jewish records were incredibly serious and incredibly well established. When the Jews came back from Babylon and wanted to reestablish in Israel, they had to go and prove it. So in Ezra, you actually do have Jews who are claiming to be descendants of priests, and they're completely unable to prove it after all these years on the run, and they're excluded from the priesthood. So if this genealogy was not true, people would have been very quick to point that out. It was a public record. You can go into this building and you would look and you'd be able to say, hey, this is complete nonsense. Jesus did not descend from David. Jesus did not descend from Abraham. So it's important to note just how concrete those claims are and how it could not have just been made up. So why does it matter about this genealogy so much? That's because of two different covenants. So there's the Abrahamic covenant that God promised that his seed, through his seed, all nations on the earth would be blessed, not just Israel. And a lot of Jews see this and they don't realize how incredibly important this is. They fixate more on the first step about owning the land in Canaan and this or that. But the great one is that Jesus Christ ultimately fulfills this promise that through his seed, all nations could receive salvation. And then the Davidic covenant, which is probably one of my favorite stories, and that comes from Samuel. And it is exactly when thy days are fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers when you're dead, I will set up thy seed after thee. Thou shalt process out of the bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. This was a promise to David, which ends up eventually being Jesus Christ. Now, the other interesting part of this genealogy is that most of the women on this genealogy were Gentiles. Most of them had issues with sexual crimes or sexual sins. So it truly shows the forgiveness of Christianity and also its accessibility for Gentiles, not just Jews. So that's our start here. We're going to go in, we're going to take every single line, we're going to go all the way through it. We're going to be bouncing around Matthew, we're going to be bouncing around all the Gospels. We're going to be going straight through Matthew and bringing up exactly the details and the context of every single line. So it's going to be fun. Stay tuned.